What's up, guys? So let's talk about some communication techniques that you need to use to become more confident, more charismatic in front of not only women, but also everyone you interact. So I used to be a very timid person. I didn't speak loud enough. I didn't have any communication techniques. And a lot of people knew that I was timid. They didn't think I was a social person. So what I had to do was transform myself completely. So what I tried to do is actually practice my speech over and over and over again in front of the camera. So since last year, January, it's been almost 2 years since I tried to practice my speech. So let's get into the 5 things that I changed throughout the years. Point number one is changing your pitch. A lot of guys and a lot of women as well, we tend to speak in a monotonic way, especially when we don't know how we're speaking. So I used to be this guy who just speaks in this monotone. There's no difference in how I speak. It just sounds very boring. It sounds like I'm giving a lecture right now. So, what I try to do is 2 things. One, imitate someone who has a variety of changes of pitch. And two, practice as if I'm trying to make a lot of sounds. So, for example, if I'm talking like this, it does sound silly, but it really enables me to actually use a different type of voice. And on the other hand, if I talk like this also sounds a bit too fake. But at the same time, what it does is it helps you to acknowledge that you're not only using a couple of keys that you've been using throughout your whole life, you can actually have a variety of different pitches in your voice. Point number two is having hand gesticulation. So when I used to speak, I never used my body like this. And as you can see, it's not very engaging. You're not using a certain part of your body to help your communication. So what I try to do is actually look at the camera or go in front of the mirror and try to practice my hand gesticulation. So a tip here is imagine there's a box in front of you and put your hands just in front of this box and try to correlate what you're speaking and your hand gesticulation. It did take me a long time to get used to this concept, especially when I'm talking in front of new people. So I try to make it a habit to just hold my hands like this when I'm talking. So if you just stand up like this and be just talking on and on and on, it's really hard for you to bridge the gap between using your hands and not using your hands. Point number three is your tonality. So tonality is simply the way you end your sentences. You can end your sentence going up or down. So as if you're asking a question, a lot of people actually have their tonalities going up. They're not even asking questions, but it's like this, and it really sounds weak, and it seems like you don't really know what you're talking about. Something like this. But on the other hand, if you have the downward tonality, the end of the sentence goes down, just like this. It's not really hard to practice this, but if you're not used to this concept, it may take a couple of times for you to actually figure this part out. So I recommend you actually sit in front of the mirror, sit in front of the camera lens, take out a recorder, and then actually hear how you're sounding. Because the more you have the downward tonality, it seems as if you're more of an authority. You have more conviction in what you're saying. Point number four is facial expression. So a lot of people have this dull face when they're talking. They have no emotion. There's no change in how they're speaking as well. But most importantly, some parts of your communication should be exciting, fun. Other parts of your communication can be more sarcastic, more teasing. And depending on the context, you need to learn how to differ your facial expressions. So what I try to do is, again, the same thing. I try to find people who are very expressive. For example, Vin Jiang. He's a great speaker, right? Look at his videos and try to imitate his facial expressions. according to what he's saying. And really looking at yourself when you're doing these drills, it just gives you a perspective of how others actually perceive you. The final point is volume. So, for example, if you have a good enough volume, people actually respect you because they think you're talking with conviction. They think you're a confident person who believes in themselves. I remember the time that I actually struggled with this. As I said, I was a shy, timid guy, and I used to talk like this, and nobody could actually hear what I was saying because I was not really sure of what I'm saying. But when I tried to figure this part out, intentionally just put my voice more out there, eventually it changed. It took me at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to change this point, but it really makes a difference. So that was the 5 tips to better your communication. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.